Welcome to the Business Finance Matters podcast. Over the next 15 minutes, we're going to tackle some of the topics that we get asked about on a regular basis so you business owners can get a better understanding of what it is that you're probably dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Let's get on with it.
It's like we almost know what we're talking about in these little sessions, isn't it?
Well, hopefully we do know a little bit what we're talking about, including today's topic.
Far away.
We had a number of financing 15s where we're trying to explain things that business owners may or may not either fully understand or appreciate what they're being used for. And in this financing 15, we're going to talk about charges.
Okay.
Fixed, floating, again, different types of charges.
Yeah.
So where do we start? When a business is looking to raise some kind of finance, typically in some circumstances, again, it's not all cases, but lenders will be looking for some kind of charge. We've spoken about personal guarantees in the past, which is another type of charge, but this is slightly different. This is more of a corporate charge, right?
Yeah, I mean, charges are used for a number of reasons, but primarily to secure a debt. And that is, fundamentally what they're used for. It's to secure a debt. It gives the lender a right over assets, be they tangible or intangible, in the event thereof. They're registered at Companies House. As you know, Companies House is open to the general public. You tap on to the website. You can go to any limited company you want, and it will say on the top, number of different things, and one will be charges, and you can see if they've got any charges there. But you're right, fixed and floating is where we start. And fixed, as the name implies, is fixed on a particular asset. That could be land, it could be buildings, it could be movable assets, whereas floating is basically over a whole range of stuff. And it allows a little bit more flexibility for the borrower, because they can buy and sell assets, etc. And effectively, as I say, it's a way of securing a finance lend or proposition, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, when I've spoken to businesses, again, in layman's terms, a bit like a mortgage, where you've bought yourself a house, but actually you haven't personally bought it out of your own back pocket. The lend has been brought to you by the building society or whoever it is put the property, be able to buy the property for it. But they've taken a charge, haven't they, on that property, which is registered at land registry, whatever the right registry number is.
And it's very similar. That's exactly what we're talking about here. I mean, I'd be frank with you. I mean, you know as well as I do that a lot of the businesses you deal with are relatively small businesses. They're not so prevalent in that market on that size of business. They tend to be more for larger investments or larger borrowings with larger businesses. So you're not going to get, your local sandwich shop having a charge unless it's on, the counter or the shop fittings. That's unlikely. What that might lend itself more simply to is the personal guarantees, which, as you know, we've covered in a previous episode.
Yeah, okay. So fixed, floating. You can also have both, can't you? Fixed and floating.
Yeah.
So circumstances that I come across a fair bit now, and we won't go into too much, but there are certain rankings. You can have a first charge, second charge, but typically we're getting into what we call the senior position.
Yeah.
So it could be a bank, for example. HSBC, for example, who I've done some work with, will go in, they might do an overdraft facility, they might do a loan facility, they might do a number of products under that banking offering. But in return, they will take that senior position, and therefore they will want the first charge on that fixed and floating.
You're absolutely right. And that's what it is. It's that ranking of debt. And if you've got a charge as a lender registered against that business, then first and foremost, you have a priority right. And, we don't like talking about business failures, but it's an inevitable situation. But in the event of the business failure, then that lender will have, as you rightly say, that first call on that debt. It's often also, as a business grows, and this affects a floating charge as well, if that business is investing in further, shall we say, equipment or maybe land or whatever, what's often forgotten is because of that priority ranking, that new lender can sit alongside the original lender, but it needs the original lender's permission. Yeah, it's often referred to as a waiver or something like that. And it's up to the original lender to decide if they want to grant that second lender.
And do you know where I see that quite a lot? the invoice finance market space. So where there is a senior lender in there, typically a bank
Yeah.
or whoever, and for whatever reason, invoice finance is introduced to the business, they typically want to have a charge over the book debts. But to
Yes.
get that charge, they have
Yes.
to get permission from the senior lender that already has that charge in place.
Agreed. And it's all about securitization
Mm.
of a loan. You know, I mean, we talked, as I say, and we don't want to go over it again because that's already existing, about the personal guarantee situation and forms of guarantee. This is different. It's a different it's a different legal instrument. It ultimately derives the same thing for the lender, and that is, and I've said it before, that securitization of that debt. It's the fallback position. No business owner wants it to ever have to come about, that has to be brought out the cupboard or used or whatever it may be. And sometimes, again, but it goes where the similarity, I think, with the guarantee is it needs to be explained to the business. You know, we've talked about before in previous Finance and 15s that most SME business owners are not financial experts. You know, they're not dealing with, yes, they're dealing with paying suppliers, they're dealing with paying the wages, but when it comes to raising debt finance, for example, as opposed to equity, they're not experts. They're not doing it every day. They don't know the range of people to go to. And when we get into the complexities, it doesn't need to be complex, but when we get into the realms of guarantees, and certainly when we get into the realms of charges, they need to understand exactly what is going on.
I agree. And again, I've come across companies, in fact, I'm working one with at the moment, they didn't even know that they'd given a first charge debenture. Now, how that occurred, I couldn't tell you because I was involved with that.
Yeah.
But in most cases, businesses should be aware of what they're signing and what the guarantee is for and why. But to come across businesses which I have done, and again, that's not necessarily their fault. As you said, it's probably down to the fact they don't have clear understanding of what they're doing and why they're doing it and what. But you know, that does happen, unfortunately.
I often make the analogy that, you know, I won't name the mobile phone manufacturer, but you'll know who I'm talking about, who reads the upgrades. You know, we all just press the automatic software. It will automatically download overnight. Do we read the T's and C's? No, we don't. However, if you're running a business, when it comes to guarantees, when it comes to charges, or any form of additional security, you must understand. And if you don't, then Dave, you and your colleagues at the Guild are there to help.
Yeah, and we've spoken about this, haven't we, in other Finance 15s, about the value of the advisor or the business finance professional.
Yes.
And part of our due diligence will be that we will get a report on the business. And the first thing that we look at, or one of the first things that I look at, is are there any charges on the business? And then we want to know why are they there? What they're there for? Because it could hinder progression going forward.
Very much so.
It could also help progression, because that first charge holder might be somebody that we as a business finance professional will go and talk to first. And that, again, that's something that business owners might not know about or might not feel comfortable going to do it without having that expertip behind them in the first instance.
You're right. And ignorance, you know, and the lack of knowledge or understanding. I mean, you know, it didn't shock me when you said a minute ago that, you know, some businesses don't even know they've got these charges registered on their business. You know, again, it goes back to what I was saying about the well-known, you know, mobile phone manufacturer. Clearly, it was never explained to them. They didn't. If it was explained to them, they'd know. You know, and a little bit of knowledge, particularly in this area, is quite dangerous because, like you say, it could restrict future growth of that business. But look, again, like we've said before, it's not a restriction necessarily that prevents growth, but it is a factor. And it needs to be taken seriously.
Yeah, and as a lender, you can understand the reasons why they want to take charges.
Yes.
I mean, if I was going to lend you that £100,
again,
I haven't got the other one back yet.
No, don't worry about that.
No, we'll sort that out later.
That's compounding interest somewhere.
But I want to have some kind of charge over you.
Oh, yeah.
Because I want to make sure that if you don't give it back to me, I'm coming after you.
But, you know, we laugh, but that's the reality of it. You know, that is exactly what the lender is doing. And again, it's more than a focus of the mind this time. It's not just the skin in the game reality. It is a legal document. Not saying that a guarantee isn't, but as a legal document, and as you rightly said, the charge is registered at the company's house. It's a matter of public record. I think something like it has to be registered within 21 days or something. I mean, we could go in and, we could get legal bods involved, and, we have legal partners within the guild, which we'll talk about probably in future episodes. But the reality is it's one of those times of business where you just stop. You take stock, you make sure you read everything that's being presented to you, and if you don't understand it, you have to ask questions.
And this is another reason why people like myself play an important role in this process. We will read the documents. We'll be familiar with most of them because we've dealt with these lenders for many, many years. But the most important thing, especially with the e-doc situation that a lot of lenders now have, which is good. I don't have a problem with e-doc, but again, recently a lender I was dealing with sent the e-docs to the customer. I didn't get copied in. So the first thing I do is say to the customer, can you please send them over so I can just double check everything? And that includes the personal guarantee, as it was in this case. There wasn't a need for a fixed charge to be taken, but there are circumstances where that debenture document, whatever you want to call it, fixed charge debenture, is something that I need to look at just to make sure there's nothing in there that, but more importantly, I need to make the business owner aware that, as you said a minute ago, this is what it is, this is why it's in there, and this is how things will move forward.
I think of all the areas of business finance that we know, Dave, there's this obsession of speed. Get it across the line as quickly as possible. Get the money in the bank as quickly as possible. Oh, I don't need to bother about reading the T's and C's. It doesn't matter. I just want the money. I just need the money, to pay the salaries, to pay the VAT. No, this is one time in running a business, you just stop. You take stock. It's not about speed. It's about understanding and putting yourself in a situation where you can make an informed decision. Because ultimately, if you don't want to do it, you don't do it. When you've done it and you don't understand, there are fees, there are growth implications, there are all sorts of stuff. So it's not the rush that many people seem obsessed with at the moment.
And there are a lot of challenges in that place at the moment with online access to finance, where you're right, business owners are interested in one thing, is getting access to that finance without appreciating that there's various levels and stages you need to go through.
Sure.
And one of those important bits is when you've got the approval from whoever it is you've gone to, there is a documentation process. You need to know what those documents are saying.
Exactly.
And you need someone like us, potentially, the guild I'm talking about,
you're spot on,
that can provide the support and also the information that perhaps they're missing out on. But before you sign this, Mr. Customer, please, do you understand?
It's like I said, Dave, small to medium-sized business owners are not dealing with these documents on a daily basis. You and your colleagues are. You're well placed to give good guidance, the pros and the cons, the reasons, the whys, the full structure of them, the fee implications as to what the fees are, because it's not necessarily just fees at the beginning. There's also fees at the end. There might be fees during it. Just do the job properly, Mr. Business Owner, is my big plea.
Please, do the job properly, which is what we're hopefully doing on these podcasts.
Absolutely,
that we're offering.
Absolutely.
But great, I hope that's clear. And again, as we always say, Trevor, in these types of podcasts that we're running now, if there's anything that we have spoken about that business owners want to know more about, then they contact us.
Yeah, go on.
No, you. I always no.
Really?
No, go. I insist.
Can you learn it one day?
I will learn it one day.
Okay.
Go.
Promise. podcast@bfpguild.org. Or what else can they do?
Google Guild of Business Finance Professionals.
Other search engines are available.
Good. Thanks for your time again.
Dave, it's
look
been
after
special.
yourself, as always.
And look after you.
I will.
Take care, big boy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on this podcast. We hope it was useful. Please share, please subscribe so we can share this content to as many business owners as we possibly can. And if there was anything we haven't covered in this particular episode, then please let us know. Drop us a line. We'll be happy to talk about it in future episodes. Thanks again.